Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Art of Selling podcast. On the show, we talk about the best kept sales secrets that we have now spent close to R1 million on over the last couple of years, having learned from some of the best sales gurus, marketing experts, and business coaches in the world. And now we're sharing all of that information with you for free, so you don't probably have to struggle the way that we did. What's the catch? There's no real catch. Just approach this podcast with an open mind and potentially just practice some of these tips in your business and let us know how it goes. Today, I've also got Gilbert, our co-host.
Thank you for having me.
And Vickers.
Yep.
How's it? So today we want to specifically talk about how to justify the price when it comes to your product or service, because it's quite simple. If the value of your product or service exceeds the price, there's a good chance that a transaction will happen or that someone would be quite inclined to buy from you. But if the price exceeds the value, it's just not going to seem like a good deal. So the question is, how can we ensure that customers understand the value of our product or service, and how can we ensure they understand the price of the specific product or service as well? Because often we find ourselves in situations where, especially if you're a marketing agency, we've worked with close to over 300 companies. A handful of these companies sell really high-end ticket products or services. And often we hear, my product is great quality, the ingredients are much more expensive, it's just one of the best on the market. But the problem is, if the consumers don't know that, then they're just going to look at a product with a very hefty price tag and go, nope, thank you, I'm not interested in that, I'd rather buy something more affordable. So today we want to talk about how can you actually justify the price of your product through your marketing and sales strategies. And I think we can just start by looking at your most common businesses that do struggle with this, and this is e-commerce businesses, because you just don't have the luxury of an in-store sales representative that can give a walk-in client or customer that information. So for example, we've used this analogy before, and that is that if someone had to walk into a retail store, there would be a sales representative that to approach them and say, hey, sir, can I potentially help you with something? And you would maybe say, yeah, I'm looking for a pair of jeans. And as he takes you over to the fitting room with a size 34, 36 pair of jeans, and it says, hey, here's your jeans, have a look, let me know how it fits. You fit them on, they fit perfectly. And then you go, what does it cost? You look at the price tag, it's 2,000 Rand, you go, there's just no way that I'm paying this. So the question becomes now, how can you actually justify that price as a brand? And as an in-store sales representative, you can start to say things like, well, it's imported all the way from Italy, it's 100% this, and essentially you can sustain 1,000 washes before the color starts to fade. It lasts up to 3-4 years. You're never going to have to worry about, it tearing or whatever the case may be. And after listening to all of that, in your mind, you'll be able to go, okay, well, that makes sense. It's probably worth spending this kind of money. From an e-commerce store, an online store perspective, you don't always have that luxury. So, how can a brand really start justifying its price from a D2C, online perspective, Gilbert?
Yeah. So on that point, actually, you've been, articulating it's the product, the quality is great. It's made in Italy. It's going to last you, over 1,000 washes or 100 washes. In my mind, I was actually imagining a video showcasing 100 washes and then somebody wearing the product, showing how durable it is, running around maybe in different settings. You're going to need to showcase all of that, because it's one thing to say in your description, it's durable, it will last you for a very long time. It's a different thing to actually show it and be able to let the product really speak for itself through your content. So it's a matter of really showcasing. If you say premium, okay, show me it's premium. If you say durable, okay, show me it's durable. How can you position it? How can you position your product on those pages to show how durable something actually is?
How can you make your claims objective at the end of the day? How can you make your claims objective?
Yes.
To the point where premium just sounds subjective. Like, what does it really mean? Especially in a world where everybody is shouting premium, this is the best, that's the best, great quality. It's all subjective marketing. How can you ensure that it becomes objective by actually showcasing the proof? And this is what we said earlier, is if people believe in the outcome, there's a good chance that, they will most likely buy it. So if you're saying this is extremely durable, which is an outcome, you're going to have to back it up with proof.
Yeah, like this takes me back to, I think a couple of years ago, there was like a lot of drop shipping ads running around, and the they would have sell these military boots that's just indestructible, and then somebody with a box cutter would try and cut them, and they would drop stuff on top of them. Tractor come drive over this guy's foot, and just showing that this product is like literally indestructible. And
but
I think that's a perfect example of what you just
100%.
mentioned.
So you're selling boots for 10,000 rand, and you're saying these are the most durable boots ever. Let's see a truck ride over them a couple of times.
It's horrible.
Durable, and that's
well.
What
there's a company now called, is it the Moose Case?
They're actually taking investors now. Have you seen those?
I
ads?
saw. Yeah. So what they're doing is they throwing an iPhone out of a plane and from a skyscraper, and they do all kinds of weird stuff. So they're basically promoting how durable their covers are for the laptops and for the phones, and they actually go as far as to actually showcasing it by throwing a laptop of a 3 or 4 or 5 story window or out of a freaking helicopter or a plane, and they do all this crazy stuff, and then it would land. Then you would they would obviously scrutinize the product, and you would realize that it's all good. And that's just one way of, again, showcasing the quality, because they're claiming, hey, best quality. Okay, cool. Let's go and show everybody how good it
that's
actually
so cool. And then when you look at their price, it's obviously going to be much more expensive than other brands, but it's going to be like, okay, cool. Like I've literally seen this case with a phone being thrown out of a helicopter. Like it justifies why I should pay this much for it. And there's probably a lot of research that went into it. It's like logical.
Yeah, I also think what we need to consider is that, the higher the ticket item that you're selling, the higher the actual product or service, the more expensive it is, the more effort it might take for you to really get to someone to understand why it is that price. So there's going to have to be a little bit more effort on the brand side, on the company's side, to really explain why the price is the price at the end of the day. If the price is cheap and affordable, like groceries, for example, it's like, okay, I need a bit of bread. Let me go and Mr. Delivery, buy some bread and Coca-Cola Zero, whatever you want to buy. If there's a 50% difference or a 1 Rand or 2 Rand difference, you're not necessarily going to worry about it too much. But if you're buying a product that's now, as opposed to $500 and now the product's price is 1,000 or 1,500 Rand, it's so far out of the normal price range that your mind's going to go, hold on a second, let me just find out what the hell's happening. And if you're not backing that up with, a lot of information on your site, and we can talk about all the different ways that you can do that, but if you're not backing all of that up, you will lose a customer and they will think that your product's too expensive.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Especially when it comes down to clothing. And the more premium quality type of clothing. Again, you must remember the consumer can't feel it themselves. They can't touch it. They can see it, but you would have to really be able to showcase and articulate things. Maybe one aspect is, for example, maybe the material that you're using in your clothing. The reason why it costs what it costs is because perhaps it's material that is only found in far parts of Italy, in a remote area or whatever the case may be. But people need to understand what's making your clothing so unique. What is it about the material? What is it about how it's made that is making it so expensive? And you really do need to spend some time crafting that description, crafting that messaging on your product page, as if you are a salesperson trying to sell it to someone in store.
Yeah. But not just that, why would somebody care that your product is from the top of Italy's biggest mountain? Is it going to make the product more durable? Why?
What's the end result?
Yeah.
That's a good point. But aside from that, we also need to understand people buy different things for different reasons. There's a study that showed most people actually end up buying things that improve their status. It's got to do with what they want more than actually what they need. And, that's something that you've been alluding to. It's from the far parts of Italy, there's scarcity and rarity to it. So in essence, it can justify a higher price tag, and I'll be one of the selected few who can actually, wear that. So that's very important. But I think what is crucial to dissect further is what can brands actually do to justify the price. So as opposed to just showing it practically, what can you actually do on your site, on your website? Because this is the thing that we see often. We put so much time and effort into building the site and, coming up with the product and doing the R&D. And then we realize, okay, cool. If we want to make these margins, this is the price that we have to sell it at. We slap it on the site. We run some Facebook ads and we see we're not making sales. That's 99% of the time what happens to people who are playing in a high-end space. And the one thing we need to be asking ourselves is what can we do practically in order to increase our conversion rate? on, those specific traffic that we're basically driving?
I feel like we have to look at the market when we look at those things. Like you get niche products where there's not a lot of competition, and you can kind of determine what's happening in that realm to a certain extent. And then you get more, I want to call it mainstream products and stuff, where you don't necessarily have all of that control when it comes to pricing. Other companies already have like a set kind of proven thing at a proven price, and now you kind of need to come into that and be wary of that before you actually price your product. So I remember back in my e-commerce days when I used to run my own e-commerce stores, is the way I would get the price, or get to a price that people would actually, or that's viable for me as a business, was to actually price it as high as I can and have all the sales elements in place on my sales pages, in my ads, like have everything from a marketing and sales aspect perfect. And then so only making the price the variable, whether somebody would buy or not, or trying as far as possible to only make that the variable, and then seeing what people say. Usually people in the comments were like, hey, this is too expensive, XX. And then I tried pushing the price a little bit lower, and maybe making it 100 Rand. So I usually sell this particular product at 900 Rand, 899, and I tried it at 799. And all of a sudden there was a lot more uptake in the product itself, and a lot more people started buying it. And that might be for other reasons. Maybe my ads optimized a little bit better, etc. But I strongly believe that it was because I actually looked at the comments, looked at what people were saying, and I thought by myself, cool, let me just test this pricing out. And all of a sudden I got where it was a 2x ROAS, I got a 5x ROAS on those particular ads.
But the question is, in that regard, could you have articulated the value of the product better on your site to have justified an $8.99 price? Or have you put all the necessary elements in place to get someone to understand the value, where $8.99 was just out of reach and $7.99 made more sense?
I think I could have edited a little bit, but I don't think it would have made that big of a difference, because I know what sales elements need to be in place. And for the most part, let's say it was 90%. If perfect was 100%, it was probably 90%. So I could have tweaked it, but it wouldn't have made that massive of a difference.
And I think
so. I was kind of like trying to find out where my price point lands perfectly.
It's got to do with your own market research, essentially, as you said. And we, as business owners, need to be self-aware of our own companies, our brands, and our products, and the value that they can provide, and do the necessary research before we actually start just throwing prices around because it feels good on paper. I think, alluding to a clothing brand, there are a lot of brands out there who have high ticket prices, but the brand justifies it. So if you look at Dolce & Gabbana, if you look at things like maybe not as high end, but still for a lot is like Polo. These kind of brands have hefty price tags, but people are willing to pay that because it improves their status. But it's purely improving their status because of the brand name in itself, and that brand name has taken years to build. We're talking about decades to build. So now I think I would love to give maybe someone who's entering the space with a high ticket price tag some practical advice on how do you actually get more consumers to give your product a shot and pay the actual price that you're asking for it, if you don't have the luxury of having that brand, because building that brand takes years and a lot of money and time. But if you don't have that and you do have a hefty price tag, what can we do practically in order to articulate the value best we can?
So in my mind, immediately it starts going towards actually building out possibly sales pages for yourself, or very long form product pages where you sit down and truly craft out the messaging of that particular product, the guarantees perhaps that you might have. So obviously if it's a higher priced item, clothing item, for example, ideally maybe you might want to have a stronger guarantee on those products, because that is something that would help you get that buy-in. You want to look into building out a much longer form product page, because there's a lot more questions that are going through, of course, the consumer's mind because of the price tag that they're seeing. And so now you're going to have to craft your messaging on a page which allows you to answer questions that the consumer might be having around your price, around your quality of product, around your guarantee, if there is one, around your potentially, the material that you use.
Gil, so I have a perfect example of a client of ours recently going into that space, or trying to build a brand in the premium market, and they're in the fragrance business, and they're going after really big brands out there like Chanel, Versace, etc. And a strategy that I think is working really well for them is, number one, they are getting people or celebrities to endorse their product, and in the form of a review or whatever, showcasing them using the product and talking about it. And then the other thing that we did was we really concentrated the advertising into one particular area or location, because if you go really broad, like in my opinion, if you go really broad, it's really hard to kind of like
Message dilutes
completely. And in this case, they had a lot of physical stores in one particular location. So we really just zoned into that location and kind of like just targeted all the ads in that location, and showcased the physical stores as well, so people can actually see a kind of like a familiar face attached to the brand, and then also showcasing the locations in the particular areas, so people can see, okay, cool, they actually have a physical location as well, and they're open to giving it a shot. And besides that, we also kind of started working on a campaign where they have like samples. They can buy a sample box for 1,000 Rand, where one perfume usually costs like 6 or 7 grand. So they can actually buy a small sample box and they could try it out. And I think those are just like 3 practical things that I can think of top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, every time someone buys, you can give them samples of other products as well, and hopefully, that way increasing your lifetime value and so forth. But I think it basically, if we have to oversimplify this, it's how the hell do we get people to understand the value? And we have 3 senses. We have eyes, so we can see, we can read. We have noses, which means we can smell. And we have ears, that means we can hear. Those are really the input sensory, organs. So with that said, we need to maybe have a video that tackles the visual perspective of something, and you can hear what people are saying. And I'm just thinking, like, you want to hit all the senses. That's really what it boils down to, without making this a biological, session. It's really looking at it. How many different ways can we get the message across? And considering that, we use our senses to filter information and process information, how can we hit all the different senses? And video is a great way to do that, essentially. Trying to showcase, the durability of the product, as we discussed prior. And aside from that, a lot of people do enjoy reading. So writing just an intense product description as opposed to the generic one that you get, from a supplier, or that's the one thing, or the number one thing that I think is just completely underrated. People completely underrate how effective a product description actually is. And it's funny, it's the most important thing, but we spend the least amount of time on it because we're just lazy. So it's really just putting, all of these things into place. And then again, there's proof and credibility. So can you actually show someone that the product is worth the price, not just by expressing the objective value behind the product, but having other people, like you said, a celebrity or other people reviewing, giving feedback on, what they've experienced trying the product. In essence, a lot was discussed today around, how to justify the price. But I think if we had to oversimplify it, at the end of the day, we have a few different senses that control the information that we filter and process. And we need to ask ourselves, how can we showcase the value of the product in all angles so that it's almost illogical to debate the value of the product or service that we're selling. And videos is a great example. Writing better product descriptions is a great example. It's one of the most underrated things that I believe an e-commerce store, has in its arsenal, but yet it's the number one thing we just completely neglect. One more thing is also, I think, we spoke about obviously product descriptions that people completely neglect, but there was a specific online client that we had who was selling sneakers, and the number one reason they had such an amazing conversion rate when it came to their high-end sneakers was because they just had like 40, 50 different product photos of the actual sneaker being worn by different people, being worn by, in different angles, in different settings. The sneaker with people wearing it, the sneaker without people wearing it, different colors of the sneaker. And it was just like almost at some point after looking at like 20 photos, you you almost felt like you were wearing them because you were looking at all these people wearing them.
But I could imagine like with different outfits as well. Like that's what I want to see. Like I never know what to wear, and it's like if I see the sneaker with this outfit, I'm like, oh, should I have this outfit?
Exactly. Or I have those color pants, or I have that kind of like same color shirt which matches the sneakers or whatever it is.
Exactly, and the pictures themselves looked premium. You know what I mean? The videos themselves look premium, so it already automatically justified. Oh yeah, no, this is a premium brand. But also, they had so many different aspects of social proof. So many people commenting, so many people saying how amazing it looks on them, and they also had their images and their videos also being used on the product page. But also, they had a well written out product description. It wasn't just 5 lines. It wasn't just 5 sentences. It was a long form product description that helped you understand how amazing that shoe was.
I actually want to buy sneakers now. Really. Like, genuinely.
He started.
I need sneakers. Like,
yeah. So thank you. Just to conclude, from a local business perspective, we've been talking a lot about online stores and e-commerce stores specifically. From a local business perspective, Vic's like, how can someone, justify the value of the price? Considering we work with a lot of beauty clinics, I'm assuming before and after photos is one thing that comes to mind, is just showing like, if you're coming for this latest treatment, there's a lady that had pigmentation here. Now the pigmentation is completely gone.
Yeah.
Maybe some other ideas will be great.
Again, just giving a great perception of what the business is like, how it looks. Is it professional? Is it clean? I think a lot of people care about those things, especially in the beauty niche. So again, it comes down to the example of run a Facebook awareness ad, a video ad where you just showcase what's happening in the salon.
Maybe even touch on the qualification of your staff, the people that you have, how long have they been training in the industry, what kind of maybe some of them have degrees that you might feel like flaunting and stuff like that. That can make someone go,
so
you know what, this actually makes sense.
You can do that in the form of Facebook posts on your about page, on your website. Again, it's all about the perception of your brand, especially in the beauty space, because everybody's running the same offers, everybody's doing the same treatments. How can you stand out? How can you look professional? How can you look clean? And how can you showcase that you are actually really good at what you do and that people can trust you? Awesome. So I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Any last words, Gil?
I think it's just spending the time to really, especially if you are selling high-end products, it's really sitting down, spending the time to actually craft out long form descriptions, taking amazing pictures and videos, and getting your customers, hopefully you have some, to give you those reviews. And even if it's not that your customers are doing it, at least get a lot of pictures that help showcase how amazing and how premium your brand really is, and give it a different settings, put it on a make it look like as if it's on the Broadway, take the right shots so that it resembles the quality of that product in relation to its setting, and people already start to automatically connect that this is indeed, or at least have the perceived value that this is a premium brand that I'm going to go buy. Yeah,
just to round off today's takeaway, specifically for this episode, before you just slap a price on your product, really ask yourself, how can you showcase the value of this product and justify the price? And how can someone look at the price and then look at what's right next to it, whether it's product descriptions or videos or social proof or other people wearing it or other people bragging about it, whatever it is there something that you can leverage in order to justify that price? Because if you can't, if value doesn't exceed price, the transaction most likely won't take place. So your job is to have a higher perceived value than the price that you're actually asking. And your job as a marketing business owner is to try and get that equation right. And if you get that right, you'll most likely have a higher sales through rate. So that's all from us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and the value in it. If there's any questions, please let us know by dropping a comment under the video. And from our side, all the best and have a good one. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.